I'm joined by Preeti Chaudhary, reporting from Aligarh. Paulumi Saha is reporting from Mathura. And Rahul Srivastav and Sharad Pradhan are with us in our Lucknow studios. And Shreya is in Aligarh. So lots of you out there. Preeti, you're there in Aligarh at the moment. And these are the kind of constituencies that the Samajwadi Party, RLD combined, needs to wrest from the BJP if they have to have any chance of power in Uttar Pradesh. What has been their strategy?
Well, the strategy is very clear, Rajdeep, is to consolidate the Jat vote, and how much will the Jat vote actually get away from the BJP and what it was in 2017 is the big question. It's interesting with what they have done right now, and the big questions I'll tell you, which the Jat factor will come into play, especially in the belt of Baghpat, in the belt of Muzaffarnagar, in the belt of Shamli, Kairana, where the Jat factor is very, very strong. This is, said to be the cradle of discontent, especially after the farm agitation which took place. This is what the RLD, the SP combined want to capitalize on, but there are nuances, there are fault lines within this alliance as well. There is trouble, especially for the BJP in these three Jat-dominated areas, the sugarcane constituencies, if one might call it. And you can see that, with the likes of Sanjeev Balyan, who's a very strong Jat leader himself. Over the last 1 week, Rajdeep, I have been to Shamli, I have been to Baghpat, I have been to Muzaffarnagar, even to Meerut. It is Sanjeev Balyan who's actually going into each of these constituencies and campaigning for the BJP, because one thing is very clear, the local candidates, there is a lot of discontent against them as well. The likes of Sangeet Som this time around are going to have a huge issue on their seats. What they have is a popular leader in the likes of Sanjeev Balyan, but he's up against Jayant Chaudhary. This is colloquially, it's called the Chunav of Chaudrahat for Jayant Chaudhary. This election will decide whether Jayant Chaudhary can come into his own to lead his party. He's veered away from the way his father has fought the election. But I'll tell you, if you allow me very quickly, the fault lines that exist within this alliance. Let's take the example. Baghpat is easier for the Gathbandhan to crack. They've got their dynamics in terms of ticket distribution, right? In terms of Shamli, Kairana, right now it seems that the Gathbandhan is stronger, where they've made inroads on the 3 seats of Shamli, Kairana. But to talk about even Muzaffarnagar, 6 seats, they are making inroads in terms of there is a Jat vote bank which is veering strongly towards the Jayant and RLD and SP combined. But having said that, Rajdeep, let's look at the language which has been used. This is a belt which still remembers 2013. The Jat and the Muslims were on 2 sides of that communal divide. Have the divisions blurred is that big question. Is the identity of the Kisan stronger than the identity of being Hindu, being Jat in 2013? Let's look at the kind of ticket distribution. Out of 6 seats in Muzaffarnagar, the Gathbandhan has not even fielded one Muslim candidate. There's a strong message they want to send out to the Jat community that this time we are with you, including the Samajwadi Party. But what's happened is, Rajdeep, that out of these 6 tickets, 5 of them are being fought by Samajwadi Party candidates on the RLD symbol. Acceptability, transferability is coming out to be a huge issue. A lot of people we spoke to did say that, we are with Chaudhary Singh, we are with Jayant Singh. This is ये हमारी मूछ का सवाल है, ये चौधराहट का सवाल है, पर साइकिल पे कैसे बटन दबा दें, 2013 हमको याद है, कैंडिडेट अगर हमारा होता तो कर सकते थे. That's what you're picking
interesting
up.
because
law and order is a huge issue, especially when Muzaffarnagar is concerned.
Because Samajwadi Party has struggled to ensure a transfer of votes even when it was in alliance with the BSP in 2019 and with the Congress in 2017. Joining me now also is Paulumi Saha to give us the BJP's perspective. Paulumi, what is the BJP strategy to hold on to as many as 53 out of 58 seats? We saw a lot of door-to-door campaigning, very aggressive on social media. I was told that there was a particular rally that Prime Minister Modi did, which touched 95 assembly constituencies of Western UP alone, 500 people at each video van. So the BJP seems to have got the social media messaging right. They have the resources. What's been their strategy?
Well, Well, as far as the BJP is concerned, Rajdeep, like you just pointed out, as far as their social media outreach is concerned, their digital outreach is concerned, the BJP obviously has been very well placed going into these elections, as the Election Commission announced that much of the campaigning will be virtual this time round because of the outbreak of the third wave of COVID-19. BJP, in fact, has been monitoring very carefully. There are ministers like, who is the minister, MOS IT, Rajiv Chandrasekhar, who have been, in fact, tasked with ensuring that the social media game is on point for the Bharatiya Janata Party in terms of even knowing on a given day the number of impressions their outreach has had on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Telegram, WhatsApp, and all other social media platforms. So that has been their game plan. Virtually, of course, the Prime Minister has been campaigning. Today, of course, he will embark on physical campaigning across Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand and Goa as well. But up until now, it has been a virtual campaign. The door-to-door campaigning, as you mentioned, Amit Shah has been in Western Uttar Pradesh. He went to Kairana. He went to Mathura as well, where I am right now. So the campaigning has been very brisk for the Bharatiya Janata Party. The Chief Minister has been in this belt as well. And of course, that very specific outreach to the Jat community as well. When Amit Shah met with Jat community influencers, if you may, and leaders, those associated with the Bharatiya Janata Party, those possibly sitting on the fence, Sanjeev Balyan got them to Delhi, over 250 of those who met with Mr. Amit Shah. And we heard that speech that he made to them, about half hour of a speech that he made, where he basically went all out into to win their confidence. He in fact said, आपको डांटना है, आपको नाराजगी है, आप मुझे आके मिलिए, मेरे घर पर आके मिलिए, संजीव बालियान के साथ आ जाइए, डांट लीजिए, पर वोट में कोई गलती मत कीजिए. Don't make a mistake as far as your vote is concerned, because that is something which will stick with you for the next 5 years. We're of course in Mathura. This is a polling station, in fact, Rajdeep, that I was here in 2019. When obviously it was the Hema Malini was contesting from here as a BJP candidate again. The RLD, of course, put all of its might over here. Jayant Chaudhary obviously resides and votes in Mathura itself. Today he's not voting because he's in Bijnor campaigning. His wife has just cast her ballot. And this is obviously, again, a matter of pride for Jayant Chaudhary as well. This entire belt is a matter of pride. If we could just get in a quick word from some of the people as well in order to see, ये मत बताइए कि किसके पक्ष में वोट दे रहे हैं, वो मत बताइए, ये बताइए किन मुद्दों को ध्यान में रख के वोट दे रहे हैं.
बदलाव पे ध्यान दे रहे हैं हम, जो है
किन बातों को ध्यान में रखेंगे आप?
हम पर अपने ध्यान में रखेंगे.
मुद्दा क्या होगा? मुद्दा क्या है?
हमें इतने
आप बताएंगे.
विकास का मुद्दा, विकास का मुद्दा,
विकास का मुद्दा है. आप बताइए मुद्दा क्या है? Okay, so clearly they're staying very silent and very tight-lipped. I did, of course, mention to them that they do not have to mention who they're voting for. That's not what we're asking for. What are some of the issues? But clearly they're staying very tight-lipped over here. And this is what is keeping the parties on the edge over here. A little bit uneasy as to which way Western Uttar Pradesh is going to swing. Rajdeep.
I don't think the parties also are, the parties always, of course, claim they're winning. And let's get Charu Pragya, spokesperson BJP, and Suchi Vishwas, spokesperson Congress, to quickly remark on that. First to you, Charu. As I said, the BJP climbed Mount Everest in 2017, 53 out of 58. Once you've climbed the summit, there's only one way to go. How do you repeat 2017 is a question I keep asking BJP leaders, and they say, we'll do okay. Is it okay enough?
Rajdeep, good morning to you, and let me begin by making an appeal to all the citizens of Western Uttar Pradesh who are voting in the first phase. If you haven't voted already, please go out and vote. This is the festival of democracy, and we are all lucky we get to participate in it. So if you haven't done so already, please vote. And Rajdeep, as you said, of course, reaching the pinnacle is easy, but maintaining that pinnacle is difficult. But BJP has proved that we can do that successfully. If you can make a comparison between 2014 and 2019, I think we will show a similar performance after 2017 this time, and 2022 as well when it comes to UP elections. We have worked hard, we have worked well. Our report card is speaking for itself, whether it is law and order, whether it is development, whether it is listening to the people and their genuine concerns. The government has been hand-holding every single citizen every step of the way, and they will remember that when they go out to vote today. So,
okay, I'm sorry, I'm cutting short politicians because ideally this is a day to hear from the voter. But Shuchi Vishwas, the Congress has played a gamble. More than about 45% of your seats in Western UP given to women. Traditionally very male-dominated patriarchal setup of Western UP. How do you see it playing out? Is the Congress simply playing for increasing vote share, or is it actually about winning seats?
A very good morning to all my fellow panelists. And definitely, Mrs. Priyanka Gandhi is trying to create a different kind of narrative, the kind of a special manifesto which she brought for women. And I was listening to BJP spokesperson as well, that she and her party worked very hard in terms of, I think her party worked very hard in terms of polarization, in terms of divisive politics, in terms of inflation, in terms of joblessness. So what exactly Bharatiya Janata Party did here in Uttar Pradesh, they brought an encounter policy as a government policy. People are suffering, people are dying, especially in terms of COVID management, mismanagement, I must say. So, respond very soon.
Right.
Are you getting my voice?
Yes, ma'am. So you're saying COVID mismanagement, questions over over lack of jobs, prices. You believe these
factors are going to work.
Okay, you believe
Only
these factors.
headline management.
You believe these factors.
Yeah, data manipulation and headline.
Okay. I'm struggling with your voice at the moment. I want to go to Maushmi Singh, who's at the moment in Muzaffarnagar. Then we'll come to you, Shreya, also. Maushmi, Muzaffarnagar, epicenter, Sanjeev Balian, the strongman now of Muzaffarnagar, minister in the Modi government. Not an easy person to deal with. He's not been very happy with the way the BJP handled the farmers' agitation in conversation that I've had with him. Is he as confident? I saw you speaking to him. We had you on air with him a little while ago. Do you get a sense that there's a sense of nervousness? Or is the BJP confident of repeating 2017?
You know, Rajdeep, I sense that there was a lot of stress and a lot of pressure. Whether that was bordering on nervousness or underconfidence of the BJP, now that's hard to tell because the BJP does realize the fact that somewhere the farmers' agitation is a cause of concern, and will it have a ripple effect? Because remember, the first two phases will actually decide at least the fate of the Gathbandhan. And if the Gathbandhan, if you look at them, they will have to boil their final overs in the first two phases. That is, they'll have to do their best performance in the first two phases, and especially this one, because this is the nerve center of the farmers' agitation. And that's why it becomes so crucial, Rajdeep, that, the Gathbandhan does well. The important factor is also all eyes are on the BSP voters. Because remember, 2012, 2017, the BSP was always second in position.
Right.
It bagged almost 22% votes in 2017. So who will the BSP retain its vote? Will it switch? BJP will be watching that very keenly. We're at one of these polling centers and the voters are having some trouble. We've been tracking that and we'll take a quick reaction. क्या दिक्कत हो रही है अंदर आप लोग ने वोट डाला?
कोई ज्यादा दिक्कत, लेकिन थोड़ी रोशनी कम है. वो पेपर्स वगैरह नाम जो वोटर लिस्ट है वो थोड़ी डार्कनेस है, लाइट प्रॉपर नहीं है. थोड़ी लाइट ज्यादा होनी चाहिए थी ताकि वहाँ दिखाई दे नाम वगैरह.
वैसे बुजुर्ग है, उनको दिक्कत हो सकती है. महिलाएं दिख रही हैं, बहुत सारी आ रही हैं. सुबह भी हमने देखा कि सब महिलाएं निकल रही थी. तो महिलाओं का वोटर इस बारी वोटर जो है दमदार तरीके से
दमदार तरीके से वोटिंग चल रही है और लेडीज भी इस मामले में पीछे नहीं है. जैसे जेंट्स वोटिंग करने जा रहे हैं ऐसी लेडीज भी जा रही हैं.
So I am seeing at every polling center, Rajdeep, there's a lot of voter awareness. This time round, people are talking about issues, but importantly, there is a large section of silent voters who are not revealing their cards. And if you ask them 5 questions, after the 5th question, they change their stand. So what's hidden in the heart of the voters? Only March 10th will tell, but a lot of undercurrent is what I sense in this belt.
And interesting, undercurrent is a word we keep using. We don't know who's going to get that benefit of that undercurrent. Shreya, are you seeing also a lot of women voting in the area where you are? In Agra? Okay, Shreya's let's come to Rahul Srivastava and on that. Rahul, woman voter. you know, this is a card which we saw went in Mamata Banerjee's advantage in Bengal. We saw it went to Nitish Kumar's advantage in Bihar. It's a vote bank which Priyanka Gandhi has tried to cultivate, but which also Prime Minister Modi and Yogi Adityanath have also tried to consciously reach out to, saying, we will provide you protection, we provided you better law and order. Do you believe that could be an X factor in this election, the woman voter, Rahul?
Rajiv, things are changing in UP. You see, at one time, the women voting percentage used to be way below the male voting percentage. But in the last few elections, in, say, Bihar and in Uttar Pradesh, the women voting percentage is almost as good as men, or even in constituencies, it's higher than the men. And in that is why you see that most of the political parties are focusing on the female voter as a separate voting entity. In that, the BJP had an advantage with Ujjwala Yojana and several others. Now, COVID is a once in a lifetime kind of a crisis. And in that, definitely, there has been a setback for the government. But one thing which I have noticed that if Ujjwala was a benefit in last 2019 elections, 2017, this time around, because of the pandemic, the subsidy on the LPG cylinders has been withheld. So there has been a rise in the prices of the SPG cylinder costing almost 1,000 rupees. And that is a talking point, Rajdeep. That suspension of subsidy on LPG cylinder, something as small as that, is a talking amount women voters, because eventually the cost of everything else, mustard oil, pulses, everything has gone up. So if women are handling the budget of a household, that's an issue. Second, very importantly, Rajdeep, that the food grains supplied by the government during these last 2 years of the pandemic is a plus for the BJP. And if one looks at these two, they can be the deciding factor. But I think the law and order element, Rajdeep, as far as the women's safety is concerned, there have been instances like Hathras and others. And if you notice, that's why Prime Minister yesterday night talked about this very Gunda Gardi, Dabang and other elements to serve a reminder to the voters. That law and order element is, I think, echoes and resonates from Western UP, Ghaziabad till Gorakhpur.
I think that's a very interesting observation, and that really could become a key X factor. The woman voter and the BJP claiming they've done much more on law and order. Shreya is back with us there in Agra. Shreya, a lot of women voting today?
Well, yes, you know, there are women voters, but, you know, the picture over here where I'm standing right now, I do see a lot of male voters instead of women voters. I'll try to get some quick word from these voters, if at all they speak. Sir, किसको वोट डाल रहे हैं मत बोलिए, लेकिन मुद्दा क्या है, किस मुद्दे पे वोट डाल रहे हैं?
मुद्दा महंगाई और विकास, दो ही।
महंगाई और विकास,
साइकिल
विकास। अच्छा, आप क्या कह रहे थे?
साइकिल को वोट डालना है।
अच्छा, so we got probably one voter who was very vocal and even expressed his choice. But definitely the issue over here is also inflation, the rising prices. Mehengai has been one of the key word in almost all these voters who are standing in queue here in Agra. That's quite a very different scene from the other voters that we're seeing in the other parts of Uttar Pradesh. Voters here in Agra seem very vocal this time.
Mehengai versus Suraksha. That seems to be one of the battle lines that is being drawn in this election. Charu Pragya, you want to respond to that? It's all very well to say that, look, we are providing you Suraksha, but we also need, you know, cooking gas at prices that are affordable.
Rajdeep, see, one thing is very clear. When you talk to voters and when you talk to them in isolation especially, they remember the difficult days of COVID. And these days didn't come specifically for the citizens of Uttar Pradesh. They came for people the world over. The point is, how did the government treat you in those difficult days? They will always remember that we had a chief minister who ensured that every migrant was seated on a bus, left till their villages with sufficient food to carry them through the journey. They will remember a chief minister and a prime minister who ensured the household had enough to eat during that point of time. They will remember there was sufficient testing and everybody got a vaccination for free. I know we've been through difficult times, but imagine a government in place which doesn't have a plan, which doesn't have a future flow chart of how things are supposed to go. And if you talk to Samajwadi party leaders today, the intelligent voters of Uttar Pradesh, and they're very astute with politics, let me tell you, I have met 15-year-olds in Uttar Pradesh who claim to know more about politics than a 50-year-old elsewhere. They are very clear when they say that they want a government with a vision. They want a government with a plan, not just someone who is being critical for the sake of it.
Let me get Shuchi to respond. It's only fair that I give her equal time. And she did. Ma'am, you're from the Congress. You believe this Suraksha versus Mehengai, is that the battle? BJP says we have provided Suraksha to women. What more do women want if they can leave the house after 6, which they claim was not possible in the Akhilesh regime?
Suraksha from whom? Suraksha from Chinmayanand? Or Suraksha from Kuldeep Senghar? Or Suraksha from MJ Akbar? Or Suraksha to Hathras rape Pidita? What kind of Suraksha? Ma'am, why don't you go and check the National Crime Records Bureau data? I think you should read first. And she is also talking about the vaccination. I hope this cops came from the Nigeria and she is aware of the actual situation of the Uttar Pradesh. That's what I said, what people are exactly facing here. Why don't you go downstairs? Don't go for this data manipulation. Why don't you go for the real issues? What exactly people are facing here in Uttar Pradesh and what exactly they are glorifying? They are just amplifying their agenda only. They are not concerned about the people of the Uttar Pradesh. Just go through the tweet of Mr. Yogi Adityanath, the latest tweet. Again, they are going giving the statements which are polarizing. So, from last few years, you are not doing anything, and now you are just giving this glorification of your own party.
Okay.
People are quite smart, whether it is Western UP or Eastern UP or the whole UP.
I'll let Charu have one last. This is not meant to be a debate show, but I'll give you one last response, Charu Pragya. The fact is, you talk about development, but as the election comes closer, we go back to issues that are seen to be polarizing, especially in Western Uttar Pradesh.
And Rajdeep, I appreciate you allowing me time. Who started this polarization? Wasn't it not the opposition who had to bring in Jinnah in Pakistan, who had to mislead people on the Ghaziabad incident last year? It's unfortunate that the only way the opposition can consolidate votes is by dividing our society. And that's an unfortunate situation. Like I said, people are wiser. Also, the Congress spokesperson picks up on a stray incident, which is terrible, of course, regretful, of course, and on which the government has already acted. But can you actually logically give me some data which supports your claim? So NCRB says that women are safer. Forget that. Go on the ground in Uttar Pradesh. I'm actually on my way to vote today in Baghpat. Go on the ground in Uttar Pradesh, meet the women there, meet the girls and their families there and ask them, are you comfortable with the law and order situation? And they will be thankful and grateful that the situation has changed. Please don't pretend that one bad incident is the norm in Uttar Pradesh. I don't like this kind of a comparison. It's like people are not saying India becomes the rape capital. That's terrible. That's misleading people.
Okay, let's take a break at this point. I appreciate my political guests joining us. When we return, we'll come back to the data and give you a sense of why this particular phase is so critical in the battle for Uttar Pradesh. You're watching our special coverage here on India Today. Back in a moment.